Hey everyone, welcome to part 4 of 6 in my video series sharing about why I believe in God and why Jesus is so important. In this video, I'm going to be sharing about Christianity, the Bible, and the importance of Jesus. I felt to start with two common misconceptions that I find many non-believers have regarding Christianity. The first is this idea that Jesus never existed, that Jesus is just a myth. Now I'm here to tell you that there's no scholar that would deny Jesus' existence. That's truly just not fact. Jesus, in my opinion, is the most influential man in all of human history. You know, we celebrate Jesus' birth at Christmas, the biggest holiday there is in the Western world. We celebrate his death and resurrection over Easter weekend, as we celebrate right now on Easter Sunday. And we even split all of time around Jesus' birth, as we see with, before Christ and after Dissension. Guys, he was so influential and he existed. The second misconception that I commonly come across is this idea that Christians are dumb and that Christianity only started a few thousand years ago because we weren't as smart then as we are now. And we couldn't explain the world then, so the only logical answer was the idea of a God. And guys, that's not true. And in this video, I want to explain why. And so as I progressed in my story and led into my university years, I began to really dive into this book, the Bible. In doing this, I learned so much about Christianity and about Jesus and about history and religion in general. Now this book, the Bible, is one of, or if not the most historical book there is. There's no other book in history that has more historical manuscripts than the Bible does. This book was written by 40 different authors, which is unlike other religious books who rely on just the one author, and was written over thousands of years. It has 66 different books inside of it, and it's split into two main sections, the Old Testament and the New Testament. If you get a chance, I'd really encourage you guys to take some time to research it and to read it. Now, the Old Testament was written before Jesus. The last book that is dated, the last book in the Old Testament was dated to be written around 400 years BC or before Christ. And even before the time of Jesus, we have thousands of historical manuscripts that are dated and found before Jesus actually existed. For example, the Dead Sea Scrolls, which were found, around 100 years BC, which contained most of the Old Testament. And so we had all these writings. And in these writings, one thing I want to point out is a bunch of messianic prophecies, or words about a coming Messiah. In the Bible, there's hundreds of messianic prophecies. And you got to realize that in culture at that time, in Jewish tradition, they were waiting for this coming Messiah. Every day in the synagogues, they were sharing these prophecies, and they were waiting for this Messiah to come. Some of these prophecies include that the Messiah would be born of a virgin, would be born in Bethlehem from the line of David and the tribe of Judah, that this Messiah would come and teach in parables, would perform miracles, and ultimately would be the ultimate sacrifice for all of us. And that's why Jesus is so important, guys. You've got to realize that all of culture and all of the Jews were waiting for this coming Messiah. And here came this man, Jesus, who fulfilled all of these prophecies. Jesus fulfilled hundreds of prophecies from the Old Testament, and that's why he was so important. And then ultimately at the end of his life, as we know and as we celebrate over Easter, Jesus died for us on the cross. He died for our sin so that we could have relationship with God again. But the important thing to note here is that if Jesus just died and that was it, that would be the end of the story. Christianity wouldn't be a thing, because he would have just been a normal man who died, and that was it. And people would have forgotten about it, and he wouldn't have been the Messiah. But the whole reason Christianity began, and Jesus is so important, is because Jesus rose from the dead. Guys, he conquered death, and he rose from the dead for us, so that we could be forgiven of sin, and in victory over the devil and over the grave, have relationship with God. Now that's what this New Testament begins with. these accounts of Jesus, the four Gospels. There's multiple eyewitness accounts of his life and what he did, and then multiple eyewitness accounts of his resurrection. There was hundreds of people that saw Jesus after he rose from the dead. Many people will say they will think it's all false and it's not true. But my main point and argument around this is related to the disciples and the early apostles. After Jesus rose from the dead, he did some things. He taught the disciples and the apostles, and he told them about what was coming next. And God was going to send the Spirit down to live in them, and he encouraged them to go into all the world and share this good news and preach the gospel. Now, these apostles and disciples went into all the earth, and they shared this message. And of Jesus' 12 disciples, all but one were brutally killed for their faith. Some were killed on upside-down crosses or burnt in oil, and just in crazy ways. And my question is, why did these early disciples and apostles do this? Why would they give their whole lives and be killed in these ways for a lie? If Jesus truly wasn't who he says he was and died on the cross and rose again, why would someone do that? It just doesn't make logical sense. And to this day, from that day of resurrection, Christianity exploded. Now, over a third of the world believe in Jesus and would identify as Christian. And that's the whole reason Christianity exists. It's because of the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, as we celebrate today. So that's my encouragement for you all today, guys. This book is so important, and I'd really encourage you guys to do some research and to read the Bible, to learn more about Jesus and Christianity and why it's a thing and why it's so important for us all. Why Jesus is so important for us to know God personally and have access to eternal life with him in heaven. So that's my encouragement for you guys today. Have an awesome day, and God bless.